number 389, which is gathered here in the mystery of the hour, and you might already know it. There are drums if you feel like drumming. And I'll sing it through for you once. It goes like this. Gather here in the mystery of the hour. Gather here in one strong body. Gather here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near. You need a drum. You're musical, you need a drum. It's right behind you. Grab something. Don't puss out. Yeah, y'all ready?
Ready.
1, 2, ready, jam. Gather here in the mystery of the hour. Gather here in one strong body. Gather here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near. Drum solo. Awesome. Gather here in the mystery of the hour. Gather here in one strong body. Gather here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near. Gather here in the mystery of the hour. Gather here in one strong body. Gather here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near. I'm going to have the 4 words stop. You ready? 1, 2, ready, stop. That thing makes it thunder. Try not to hit yourself with it.
Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship Church of the Brazos Valley. I've gone back in time. My name is John Ivy and I'm your worship assistant today. We are a welcoming congregation, which means we celebrate and welcome all people of diverse sexual orientations and gender identities. We also strive to welcome people across diversities of race, age, ability, immigration status, and belief. In addition, we're a congregation working for reproductive justice. So whoever you are, wherever you have come from, wherever you are in life's journey, know that you are welcome here. I have 4 announcements this morning. One, next Sunday afternoon, November 6th, we'll be participating in Crop Hunger Walk. Volunteers will walk as a community to raise funds to fight worldwide hunger through Church World Service and locally through the Brazos Church Pantry. Our Ministry for Social Justice and Earth is coordinating a UUCBV team. See a member of MSJE, Pam Johnson is here today for event details, how to volunteer, and how to donate. Number 2, Mystery Book Club. It happens Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. in person or by Zoom. The next 3 meetings are November 9th, November 30th, and December 14th. You can find that on the church calendar online. Join in to discuss some of your favorite mystery books. I've been told you can see Meg if you want more information about that. Announcement number 3, online giving. You can give by check or, more conveniently, on our website, go up to our website, click on Give, found on the main menu, and then Online Giving. You'll find several options, including Pay Your Pledge, if you don't come every Sunday, or RE Matching Grant. We have a religious education matching grant to help fund our RE activities. A very kind, large contribution of $20,000 was provided, and our challenge is to try to match that. Announcement number 4, we're continuing our football parking activities every home Aggie game day. We have 3 more games coming up this month. Parking is coordinated by Bobby Presley. To park cars for donations to our ministries at our former Welborn Road location, just south of campus. The 3 games are November 5th, November 19th, and November 25th. So if you can volunteer to help with those parking efforts, see me afterwards. Bobby's volunteer. And now for our call to worship.
The service today is going to be a little spooky and a little unusual in that we're honoring the ancestors today. Many traditions do that. And I'm going to call the directions. To the 4 directions, if you all want to follow along, it's number 446 in the hymnal. Spirit of the East, Spirit of air, of morning, of springtime, be with us as the sun rises in times of beginning, times of planting. Inspire us with a fresh breath of courage as we go forth into new adventures. Spirit of the South, Spirit of fire, of noontime and summer, be with us through the heat of the day and help us to be ever growing. Warm us with strength and energy for the work that awaits us. Spirit of the West, Spirit of water, of evening and autumn, be with us as the sun sets and helps us to enjoy a rich harvest. Flow with us with a cooling, healing quietness and bring us peace. Spirit of the North, Spirit of earth, of nighttime and winter, be with us in the darkness in the time of gestation. Ground us in the wisdom of the changing seasons as we celebrate the spiraling journey of our lives. That was by Joan Goodwin, and blessed be. Ashe. Amen.
I added everything a person has on their face. He added the smallest part. The dinosaur blue.
Please join me in saying the words to lighting our chalice, which you will find on the screen above me. We light the chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian and Universalist faith, as a beacon of hope for all who seek justice, dignity, and compassion, and a celebration for the life of truth and the meaning we share together. Now please join me in saying our affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning. My name is Allison Faber, and I'm the Director of Religious Education today. Well, more than today. I'm glad to see you today. The first thing, before our story today, we're going to have a costume parade for all of the people who came in costumes. If you don't have a costume, you still want to be in the parade. We do have masks at the back. So if you would like to be in the parade, please line up by Liam at the back of the room. If you can recognize Liam. all ages costume parade. But
Yeah, anybody want to be in the parade with a mask? We have masks.
I have a mask.
You do. You look very spooky.
So how our parade is going to work is that everyone sitting down is going to provide the beat.
Yeah.
So when they start walking in, we're just going to clap to, and they're going to make a move, do their moves, whatever moves you want. And awesome, thank you. Marchers, you are free to stay up here and listen to the story, or you can head back and make masks. You can say your All right. Our story today is called When the Wind Stops, and it's by Charlotte Zolotow and illustrated by Stefano Vitale. The great bright yellow sun had shone all day, and now the day was coming to an end. The light in the sky changed from blue to pink to a strange dusky purple. The sun sank lower into the long glowing clouds. The little boy was sorry to see the day end. He and his friend had played in the garden. When they were tired of playing, they lay down in the grass and felt the sun on them, warm and soft, like a sleepy cat resting. Reed, how does a sleepy cat look?
Yeah.
There had been icy lemonade in the afternoon, which they drank under the pear tree. And the little boy's father read him a story on the porch before he went to bed. Now, his mother came in to say goodnight. Why does the day have to end? He asked her. So night can begin, she said. Look. She pointed out the window where high in the darkening sky, behind the branches of the pear tree, the little boy could see a pale sliver of moon. That's the night beginning, his mother said, resting her hand on his shoulder. The night with the moon and stars and darkness for you to dream in. But where does the sun go when the day ends? The little boy asked. The day doesn't end, said his mother. It begins somewhere else. The sun will be shining there when night begins here. Nothing ends. Nothing? The little boy asked. Nothing, his mother said. It begins in another place or in a different way. The little boy lay in bed and his mother sat beside him. Where does the wind go when it stops? He asked. It blows away to make the trees dance somewhere else.
The wind blows.
But where does the dandelion fluff go when it blows away? Well, it carries the seeds of new dandelions to someone's lawn. Where does the mountain go after the top? Down to where it becomes the valley. Where do the waves go when they break on the sand? They're sucked back into the sea to become new waves. Where does the rain go when the storm is over? Into clouds to make other storms. And where do clouds go when they move across the sky? To make shade somewhere else. And the leaves in the forest, when they turn color in fall, they go into the ground to become part of new trees with new leaves. But when the leaves fall, that is the end of something, the little boy said. It's the end of autumn. Yes, his mother said, the end of autumn is when the winter begins. And the end of winter? The little boy asked. The end of winter, when the snow melts and the birds come back, is the beginning of spring, his mother said. The little boy smiled. It really does go on, he said. Nothing ends. He looked out at the sky. The sun was gone completely. The lovely pink clouds had disappeared. The sky was dark and purple-black. High above the branches of the pear tree shone clearly now a thin new moon. Today is over, his mother said. It's time for sleep. And tomorrow morning when you awake, the moon will be beginning a night far, far away, and the sun will be here to begin a new day.
If y'all would help me do this responsive reading, it's number 720. We remember them. I'm going to sit on my throne so I don't have to move my hand. There we go. In the rising of the sun and its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. And in the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of the summer, we remember them. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and in the end, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as you live, they too shall live. For we are now part of us, as we remember them. From Roland B. Gittleson. No, we're so fortunate that I was going to sing a song from Wicked for us.
So Wicked, I don't know if anyone has seen the musical. I saw it on Broadway when I was 16. It was amazing. Wicked tells the story of the witches of Oz, before and after Dorothy's arrival, asking the question, are people born wicked, or do they have wickedness thrust upon them? Elphaba begins her story as a socially awkward but talented young student of magic, eager to prove herself to those she admires and stand up to injustice. But she runs into situations again and again where she either can't help those she cares about, or her help just makes things worse. When she refuses to use her powers to uphold the status quo, she finds herself on the wrong side of the ruling class, vilified by those she'd once looked up to. Just before this song, her loved Prince Fiero sacrificed himself to save her and was dragged off to a cornfield to be tortured. See if you can guess which classic Oz character this spell turns him into. It works, though not as she expected. One thing I love about musical theater is that it features emotions way bigger than what we express in everyday life. Music can pull you into the heart of a character just as it's breaking. And in that moment, even the Wicked Witch of the West becomes brutally, beautifully human. I believe there's not a person you wouldn't love if you knew their whole story. So when someone is called wicked, look a little deeper. Learn their story. It might not be so different from your own, after all. And hopefully this works, barring any technical difficulties. I need one more thing, and then we'll be ready. Can't be a witch without your spell book. Ready? Let his flesh not be torn, let his blood leave no stain. Though they beat him, let him feel no pain. Let his bones never break, and however they try to destroy him, let him never die, let him never die. Melicanamenatu, Melicanelka. Oh, what good is this chanting? I don't even know what I'm reading. I don't even know what trick I ought to try. Pierre, where are you? Already dead or bleeding? One more disaster I can add to my generous supply. No good deed goes unpunished. No act of charity goes unresented. No good deed goes unpunished. That's my decree. My root of good intentions led where such roads always lead. No good deed goes unpunished. Dr. Dillman. Too much to mention. Was everyone sleeping good? Or just sleeping attention? Is that all cookies are when looked at with an ice cold eye? If that's all cookies are, then maybe that's the reason why. No good deed goes unpunished. All leftovers should be circumvented. No good deed goes unpunished. For I look well, then look at what well men did. All right, enough, so be it. So be it then. Let our laws be free. I'm wicked. Will in places I cannot succeed. The arrow saved. I promise no good deed will I attempt to do again. Ever again. No good deed will I do again.
And probably that was most of the video.
How'd that sound?
My dear father,
Oh, wait. We did most of the video. That's a beautiful song.
Thank you.
Y'all may notice there's a tree up here. This is our ancestor tree. I don't know how many of y'all read the announcements and brought a picture of your ancestors, but if you did, we want to put them up here on the altar. I also have ribbons, so what we're going to do is kind of cool. in almost every culture, there is some sort of ancestor prayer or time of year where people think that the veil is thin between the worlds. And Samhain, or Halloween, has always been traditionally that. Samhain is the Scottish version, the Celtic version. And so maybe you all are familiar, being Texans, with Dia de los Muertos. And so that is a similar cultural celebration of our ancestors. Now, some of y'all may not have any ancestors of your blood biological relations that you want to claim, and I understand that. It's not a problem. You can have your ancestors. You can claim the people that you were inspired by. You don't have to claim somebody that you're blood relations, but we're going to have an opportunity to tell stories about our people today. And that's fun, right? So, we'll make it work. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, let's see if we can make it work. All right, I want to make this safe for anyone. So, what we're going to do, I will demonstrate, and Meg, will you come demonstrate? So, I think Meg has brought a picture of her family, some of the people in her family. Her family is gigantic. She took me to the first Thanksgiving in Statesville, and there were 81 people there.
This is a picture of my grandparents, flanked on either side by my mother when she was in her 20s and my Aunt Mabel when she was in her 20s. My grandfather and grandmother were missionaries in India, in what is now Pakistan. And my grandfather was bald my whole life. And he used to teach us how to toast marshmallows over an electric burner on the stove, which was messy. And he would sing, "I'd rather have fingers than toes. I'd rather have ears than a nose. But as for my hair, I'm glad that it's there. I sure will be sorry when it goes." And my grandmother, I never saw her laugh. And we had night prayers every night, every single night, Bible readings and night prayers. And she would go like this during the prayers. My mother was very cute, and she was a second grade teacher. And she was like a camp counselor in every situation. Just picture what a camp counselor would do. She was a lot like Kiya, actually. And she loved children, and they loved to follow her around. My Aunt Mabel was the enforcer. She was kind of scary. I remember being at her house one Easter, and we had gone to sunrise service, and then we'd gone to Sunday school, and then we'd gone to church, and they were about to make us go to Vespers, which is an evening service, and I locked myself in the bathroom. I was 14, and I said, "I am not going to church one more time today." And Aunt Mabel was outside the door trying to reason with me, but I don't remember if it worked or not. I was 14, so. That's who I'm bringing today. I think they would be horrified to be on a silent altar because they were staunch Presbyterians, but maybe they are broader minded now.
So, I mean, that's basically how we're going to do it. We also have these ribbons, so if you didn't bring a picture, you can still tell a story and tie a ribbon, like Meg is doing right now, to our ancestor tree. And again, you can pick an ancestor. I'll pick one that isn't my biological one. I love this woman named Natalie Clifford Barney. She lived in the 1920s in Paris. You probably don't know her, but she was American. Her mother was an American painter who had gone to Paris because women could paint in Paris in the 1920s. And so Natalie Clifford Barney was very, very, very out in the 1920s. So out that she rented a carriage and went in a tuxedo and picked up the most beautiful courtesan in Paris and took her on a date. And so she is one of my ancestors. I really admire her gumption. But she wrote in French, so a lot of Americans have never heard of her. Anyway, she hung out with all these women, and they had a temple to Venus in the backyard. And there's all these great photographs of them all dressed up like Greek goddesses dancing around. Think 1920s wispy women. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Anyway, so I'm gonna tie one for Natalie Clifford Barney. Would somebody else like to go?
Right. So while we forgot to bring our physical pictures, I did grab a digital one here of my grandmother. Her name was Nora, and she was a member of the NPRS. NPSRS, Non-Poisonous Spider Relocation Society.
Oh my goodness.
She was a very sweet, very fun, very wonderful woman who, while I only really got to know her for my younger years, I do remember her always being very kind. She was Hispanic, born and raised in Couch, New Mexico, where many of her family lived for generations before that. And she always called me Mijito, my little grandchild, my little one. And those are still a title I find very special. She was a very important person to me, and she's actually the first person I remember reading a story to. When I was in kindergarten, early first grade, and I remember it because I was kind of embarrassed. I was reading a story, and while I was pretty good at reading words, I had not learned what acronyms were yet. And so this was a particular story about a Mr. Lion, who for the entire book, I said, Mer-Lion. This is Mer-Lion. And it wasn't until the end when she sweet and tried to teach me about what an acronym, what an abbreviation was there. And but I do remember that reading it in her house, which my grandfather, Wally, he always built all of his own houses wherever he lived. And he made it a feature. He always had a stained glass window he built into every house that he built. And they're both long gone, but very special and very missed.
Thank you. John?
I remember today my father and my mother. My father, Jack, he passed away 10 years ago. He was a physician, and I remember learning after he had retired that he would build time into his daily schedule so that he had enough time to listen to everything his patients had to say. He wanted to give them that time they needed, not rush them out in 10 minutes. He played the piano. I only heard him ever play one tune on the piano. Every time he sat down, he would play the minute waltz. It probably took him 2 or 3 minutes. My mother, Shirley, passed away earlier this year. She was a homemaker. She made a good home for 3 sisters and me. And when she had the time, she also did public service work out in the community, involved in the League of Women Voters, other volunteer organizations, and was deeply involved in our UU fellowship back home. And I had the experience of getting to scatter their ashes where they now are together back in the Memorial Garden of their hometown fellowship.
Ancestors today. The first is my mother's mother. Her name is Helen, and I never got to meet her because a drunk driver killed her before I was born. And it's very sad, the absence of even sort of personal stories that my mom is able to tell. It's still very traumatic. But I wanted to honor her because I feel a very deep connection to her. So she died in Corsicana, and every time I drive on Highway 14 where she died, I just feel something. I don't know what it is. I'm not usually a woo-woo kind of person, but I feel a connection to the place. So I wanted to honor her. And my other great-grandmother is Betty. This is Betty. She was a Spitfire. She was born in Broken Bow, Oklahoma. She was Choctaw. And she set off on her own, moved to San Antonio, and really learned Spanish, started selling insurance to the Hispanic community there, and really made a name for herself doing so. But the reason I say she was a Spitfire, she taught my dad how to drive when he was 8 years old, sitting on phone books.
Oh my God.
Said what your mother doesn't need to know. She called all the kids her confidants. So she did really fun stuff. I was playing really hard one day outside, and I came inside, I was just drenched in sweat. And she said, Allison, don't ever say you sweat, you glisten. I said, okay, there we go. We glisten, we don't sweat. But yeah, she was a Spitfire, and I miss her very, very much.
Somebody else want to share a story? All right.
This is the only picture I have, but this is my grandma, my dad's mom, not my dad's dad. She would probably also be horrified to be on the Samhain altar because she was raised Mormon from like pioneer stock, so people who crossed in the migration, but yeah, she had 9 kids, so there's like 250 people. Lincoln her descendants, it's a lot. Yeah, I remember we go to Idaho every summer and pick raspberries in her backyard and sleep in her greenhouse, and she has the best greenhouse. Also in my grandpa's life, so that is that. Yeah.
Anybody else? All right.
I'm going to describe a picture I didn't bring and then describe the picture I did have in my wallet. My mother and dad had different backgrounds. And the picture I didn't bring is the big picture of my mother's family. She's sitting in my grandmother's lap. My great-grandmother is there, who I never met. And all kinds of aunts and uncles and cousins, and it's sepia now because it's so old, and I love it because it gives me a feeling of being part of something really bigger than I am. Both my grandmother and my grandfather emigrated from England. And so I always had that image of them traveling to a new country. The new country was Canada. And I was so inspired by the bravery that they had. I never knew, I never heard any stories about the travels, but they must have been through a lot to make it. And they really prospered well. And are my family, which is amazing. The other half of my family is my dad's side, and his mother, who I never met, my grandmother, had 14 children. We feel so sad for her. It's just hard to believe. My dad was the second youngest, and the youngest one was my Uncle Kenny, and they were very close. I didn't know a lot about my dad's family because he was estranged from everybody else, but this picture is a picture of my dad and my uncle with wigs on. They used to clown around, but my uncle had these wigs and they looked like some of their sisters, I guess. And it always made me laugh. But that was a special relationship. When I graduated from high school, I was in Germany. We were in Germany. And I came home ahead of my parents to start college. So that summer, I lived with my Uncle Kenny and my Aunt Jo and my 3 cousins who I thought didn't do enough work at home. So I used to make them go out in the garden and pull weeds with me. I don't know how I got away with that because I wasn't that much older than they were. But anyway, I thought I was boss, so I did my best. So remembering both sides of my family.
Yeah, if you're feeling shy and you don't want to tell a story, you're still welcome to tie a ribbon on the tree. When I was in seminary, we took a class, and it was kind of a witchy class, and we basically learned how to call our ancestors. And so imagine a bunch of seminarians laying on the floor, and we're drumming. There's a chant drumming, so at a certain speed or whatever, it evidently connects in your brain a certain way. So for hours, there are these drums playing and we're laying on the floor. Everybody's getting in touch with their ancestors. And they gave us really good advice. They said, you don't have to talk to all your ancestors that show up. Which was nice, you know, because there were some I would like to skip. And so, yeah, and then your ancestors start coming through. It actually kind of works. So even if you just concentrate on them, it's kind of a neat thing. And that's what happens at this time of year. That's why people go to the cemetery and they celebrate they tell stories like what we're doing. That's in almost every culture. In Shinto, in China, in Confucius, you all know what I'm saying. And yeah, so almost every culture has some kind of ritual like this where people can connect back with their ancestors, and sometimes it gives you strength and power. So I hope that you enjoy this celebration, and even if you're feeling shy and you don't want to tell a story, again, I remind you, you don't have to pick somebody that you're biologically related to. You can just think about people that you emulated growing up, or anybody that you think is cool that you want to call their energy to you. This is a witchy day, so. Okay.
We're just checking.
Thank you, Reverend Kiya, for this opportunity. This is my mom and dad. They've been deceased now for over 20 years. Dad died. Well, most of you know that Dad was a Southern Baptist minister, and he died before I became a Unitarian Universalist in the traditional way about joining the UU Church. But when I was in college, back in, I hate to say, in the late 1960s, Dad was driving me back to school, which was at a Southern Baptist girls' school, and he asked me what it was. At that point, I was engaged and going to get married 5 days after I graduated, and he said, I hope you and your husband will go, we're going to church, because I was moving to Ohio. And I said, oh yeah, Daddy, we'll join the church. You know, I was a Southern Baptist minister's daughter, serving in going to a Southern Baptist school, working as a missionary 2 summers when I was in school. And I said, sure, I'll go to church. That's not even a question. Well, then about, let's see, 30 years later, a couple of years before he passed away, probably in 1992. Now, I became a Unitarian Universalist in 1995, so this is before I even heard about UUs. And I had fallen out of church. I was unchurched for a while, and I had gone home for the holidays. So he was taking me back to the airport, and he said, "Now, where are you going to church?" And I said, "Well, Dad, I'm not going to church right now." And he just did his usual things, and, well, you need to go back to church, because I want to know that when I get to heaven, that I'll see you up there one of these days. And I said, "Well, Daddy, if there's a heaven, I will be there." But I didn't know that there was a faith that believed everyone was going to have a life, eternal life of happiness, and not hell or heaven. So, but I love you, Dad. I love my mama too. She supported my dad in everything she did. He was not called to the ministry until 5 years after they got married. She didn't know what she was getting into, but she was a great minister's wife.
All right, we're gonna tie another ribbon for everybody who is too shy to come up and tie a ribbon. And you're welcome. Would you like to go?
Not come up, but I'd like to.
Yeah, no problem. Would you like us to tie one for you?
Yes, please
Okay.
do. This is for my mother, Erna, Pauline, Meters, McCollum, and ancestors from Scotland, Presbyterian. But she had a fantastic sense of humor, and I know I've told this story many times to people. First of all, it's her humor that got her through life. She moved from California to this little town in Texas to be with us, and when she was in her early 90s. And she wouldn't live with us because she knew she would have to follow our rules. And she had her own. So we found a place at the Carriage Inn, and she had wonderful care there until she lived to almost 102. She was, her sense of humor got her through macular degeneration. She loved to read. Of course, she couldn't read. She listened to books until she couldn't hear, and so, and she had, I had the comfort keepers come and take care of her during the day. And she was always been very active. She would crawl out of bed. Yes.
The night too.
Yes, because she would crawl out of bed and have to get rails up, and she tried to crawl over those too. Very agile. But at one point, there was some new comfort keepers coming in. And one of the young ladies said, trying to help her remember her name, she said, "And now, Erna, what is my name?" My mother looked up at her and said, "Well, if you don't know, why should I?"
Thank you all so much for sharing your stories, and feel free to come up after the service and tie a ribbon or look at the pictures of everybody's beautiful family and talk about it. And now we'll move on to the offering.
Now we let an offering be taken to sustain and strengthen this place, which is sacred to so many of us, a community of memory and of hope, for we now are keepers of the dream. This church shares the proceeds of the offering plate donation every week to support important nonprofit organizations with which we work. This month, we are proud to support Mobile Food Pantry. The Brazos Valley Food Bank began the Mobile Food Pantry program in 2008 with the goal of bringing fresh, frozen, and non-perishable food directly to food deserts, communities with inadequate access to nutritious foods needed to maintain a healthy diet. Please be as generous as you can.
So I'm going to play you one of my songs, but it's kind of appropriate for this time of year. It's called Burial Ground.
Built my house on a burial ground. Ghosts and spirits were all around. I am bummed and I am never alone. Forgotten crypts and forgotten bones. The weather changed and the sky grew gray. That tire hill was miles away. An empty road and a sudden sound. A crack of lightning and the rain came down. Built my house on a burial ground. Ghosts and spirits were all around. I am bumping, I am never alone. Forgotten crypts and forgotten bones.
This is your part. It's the Indian Burial Ground song, and it goes like this. Hey, hey, ya, hey, 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 ya, hey, 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 ya, hey, hey, ya, hey, hey, ya, hey, 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 ya, hey, hey, ya, hey, hey, ya. Those said those were her very words. Voices behind the voices you heard. Deja vu, you can put a foot wrong and find you buried in the catacomb. I built my house on a burial ground. Ghosts and spirits were all around. I am bumping, I am never alone. Forgotten crypts and forgotten bones. Hey, hey, ya, hey, 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 ya, hey, hey, ya, hey, hey, ya, hey, hey, ya, hey, 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 ya, hey, hey, ya, hey, hey, ya. When you find that happy home, read the fine print on that tombstone. Burn your sage and whisper your charms. Like signal fires, sound the alarm. I built my house on a burial ground. Ghosts and spirits were all around. I am bumping, I am never alone. Forgotten crypts and forgotten bones. Hey, hey, ya, hey, 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 ya, hey, hey, ya, hey, hey, ya, hey, hey, ya, hey, 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 ya, hey, hey, ya, hey, hey, ya. Thanks for singing.
Thank you, Reverend Kiya. Please join me now in extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish the flame, not the light of truth, the warmth of the community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we gather together again.
Remember the way of the wind and breathe and blow. Remember the way of the fire and sparkle and